Hi friends, welcome to the NPTEL course Entrepreneurship. We are in week 6 special lecture. The focus of this lecture is on startup thinking process. You might have considered in the main course that startup thinking is very unique. It is creative. It tries to solve problems that are not easily discovered by other mainstream companies and not even by customers at times. So there are 4 basic parameters in any startup thinking process. These are customer, need, product or service, and technology. These 4 need to be connected by the startup in a seamless and smooth manner. So when we think of startup, the primary focus on the customer need. But customers are one cluster, needs are another cluster. The kind of needs different customers have need not necessarily be homogeneous, need not also be known to the customers themselves. So identifying the customers is one part of the startup challenge. The other part is to discuss, discover and debate the kind of needs those customers have. So a lot of thinking process is involved, a lot of ideating process is involved in understanding the customer needs. That's why we discussed the design thinking process as part of the main series of lectures. Now these needs can be fulfilled by appropriate products or services. But these products or services cannot be run-of-the-mill products and services. They have to be creative, they have to be unique, they have to be differentiated. Then only a startup will be able to make a breakthrough in the marketplace. But to be able to achieve that, the startups need technology. Again, technology which is innovative and probably cutting edge in its nature. So these are the 4 parameters that need to be satisfied before a startup can take up a project. We have seen that all these 4 parameters are interrelated, but they are also challenging in terms of each of the dimensions. The startup's ingenuity lies in connecting these 4 parameters seamlessly and making one unified value proposition for the customers. I take the example of a product for you to appreciate how startups can think about these 4 aspects and try to connect these 4 aspects as part of the startup idea. So I take the example of Whispering Fan. We know that fans are there everywhere. Without fans in our country, we cannot be comfortable. Whether it is indoors or whether it is outdoors, fans are an indispensable part of our life. But we are also aware that fans make a lot of noise. Now, before we come to that, let's look at product life cycle and its management. Product life cycle covers the growth of the product from the first launch in the marketplace to its decline. Product life cycle can be extended with product improvements and extensions. Why is this relevant? Because in terms of the product we are discussing, the first electric ceiling fan was introduced around 1890, several decades earlier to the current timing. But the fans existed almost as they were, although the shape, the elegance and the look and feel varied, one thing did not move. That we will come to it later. But if you look at a typical product life cycle, it goes through the introduction phase, goes through the growth phase, then reaches the maturity phase, and after a particular point of time it declines. But the product can be given a new lease of life in terms of the product life cycle with consistent and impressive product improvements. There has been 130 plus years of relatively unchanged product journey for the humble ubiquitous fan. There has been no breakthrough of sorts in the fan. Now we have to consider that product life cycle extensions can be of limited use when faced with disruptive technological developments. Nevertheless, just as basic feature phones coexist with smartphones, basic products continue to be of relevance. In the case of the ceiling fan, it is taken to be a very common product and not much attention has been provided in terms of achieving a technological breakthrough in elevating the fan's performance beyond a particular benchmark level. Now let's look at the market segmentation that happens with the fans. Market segmentation involves segmenting the total market, that is the universe of customers and businesses relevant for the product family, in terms of certain common characteristics related to the usage of the product and affordability by the customer. So we can think of the ceiling fans as 6 types of fans. One is a standard ceiling fan, which is the most popular and which is the most visible reflection of the ceiling fan product. Then we also have some out of the ordinary fans, multi-blade ceiling fans. These are seen mostly in hotels, in areas where the fan is required to be seen more as an accessory rather than as an essential breeze provider. They will be rotating very slowly, and you will be seeing these kinds of multi-blade fans in huge atria as well. But we also have decorative ceiling fans. They are coupled with lot of glitz and glamour and are presented in high-profile residential buildings. There are low ceiling fans which are specially designed to provide air circulation in a small room. Then we have designer ceiling fans and also artistic ceiling fans. But this segmentation is more in terms of the demographic pattern, in terms of the usage pattern. However, all these fans have the same issue. There can be several a priori hypotheses. For example, unusual ceiling fans could be requiring more silent operation with better price premium. Then it will have a premium feel. That is one hypothesis. It could also be that basic fans themselves require most of the silent revolution because these are the ones which are used the most by one and all. Near universal volumes of the basic fan provide the hypothesis foundation for providing some technological improvements, even if they are offered with wafer thin margins. Now, given that, why is it that there is no improvement just on one factor, which is the noise level of a fan, regardless of the type of fan that is offered in the market today? Now, when you look at the ceiling fan example, you can see all kinds of segmentations. We can segment a fan in terms of the weight, the height to the ceiling, the number of blades that are deployed in the design, motor power, blade dimensions, maximum speed, regulation mechanism from the low to the highest, materials used, value-adding accessories, life and price. Just as a smartphone is segmented based on a number of product features, a ceiling fan can also be segmented in its market based on the product features as I have outlined. But all these specifications have certain basic purposes to be fulfilled. Speed is one. Air throw, that is the throw of the air when the fan is in circulation. Room coverage, the kind of room that can be covered by the fan design. The usage of power, the life factor of the fan, and the noise levels. And when you look at all of these things, we find that there have been improvements in terms of the speed and its regulation, in terms of customizing airthrow to the room envelope, making fans suitable for large rooms as well as small rooms, optimizing on the power consumption, and ensuring that the bearings and various other moving parts are in such a manner that the life of the ceiling fan is prolonged as much as possible. But when it comes to the noise level, there isn't much improvement that can be seen by us. Therefore, if I were a startup trying to look at the common ubiquitous fan, whether it is a ceiling fan or a pedestal fan, I would focus on developing a whispering fan. I say whispering fan because it is a way of catching the imagination. The fan should run with a sound level that is not more than a human whisper. So to be able to develop this idea, this concept as actually a breakthrough concept that can be executed, the startup has to make lot of study. For example, the startup should understand the problem of noise, including what triggers the noise in a ceiling fan. Identify potential solutions to eliminate the noise, and group these solutions in terms of static and dynamic factors. Then you must simulate and run experiments in multiple permutations and combinations. Filter and crystallize on the top static and dynamic solutions. Then get into the prototype building stage. Design and develop and or procure and deploy hardware and operating system. At that point of time, again, as we discussed in the main course, we develop the minimum viable product, MVP, with the objective of completely testing it out in terms of the basic new functionalities, and then move to the ultimate desirable product eventually. But between the MVP stage and the UDP stage, we are aware that we have 3 proofs of startup which we need to test and validate. One is the proof of concept, that there can be a whispering fan in fact, and the whispering fan will be appreciated by the customers. 2, proof of product, that is, such a concept can be actually made practical in terms of a product. And thirdly, when we do make that, the business around that product will be successful, viable and sustainable, as well as growth oriented. Now these 9 activities are going to be iterative activities, and in each iteration you will only achieve higher level of maturity in terms of understanding the concept of whispering fan. Now for each block we must apply design thinking. I have discussed in detail what design thinking is and how design thinking can achieve breakthrough ideation. So question, what is ceiling fan noise? When we say ceiling fan noise, it is just one noise, or it is an aggregation of different noises that emanate from the ceiling fan. And what happens if the noise is there? Is it bad for the health? And if so, why is it bad for the health? What is the current noise level currently obtaining? And how does one judge the noise level that is preferred? So what should be the aspirational goal? And what can I promise the customer with my product? Can I offer a zero noise fan, particularly when so many moving parts and the slicing of air is involved? So what can I promise the customer with my product? And can I deliver the product as a total solution? These are again for design thinking approaches which must be applied to each of the blocks of the 9 blocks which we have seen earlier. Many of these steps would be iterative activities, and in each block you will achieve higher level of maturity as you start applying the design thinking process. Now, to identify the project in a more concrete terms, we should understand the decibel challenge. What does noise mean? So following is a list of dB readings. dB means decibel. Readings from various sources, and this is generally a scientific reference, but it's a guidepost, because to be able to zero in on the right noise level, you got to be far more scientific than judging in terms of a qualitative relation between a particular activity or a particular product and the decibel levels. But this guidepost is very relevant. The softest sound you can hear is almost at the 0 level, and that is when the whole world around you is still and nothing is happening. But if you find a leaf falling, then it is the next level, which is 10 decibels. Let's say you are in a room without fan. You experience some sound, but that is also low level of sound, that is 15 decibels. Suppose you are in a garden and you hear only the leaves rustling. It is called 20 decibel level. And when you are close to a person and the person is breathing, 25 decibels is the sound of breathing. And when I am whispering to you in your proximity, that's the 30 decibel whisper level. And when you are softly making conversation in a library where you are not supposed to talk, that would be 35 decibels. And distraction when learning or when concentration is needed is 40 decibels. That is, you are concentrating on a particular activity. Only when the sound reaches the level of 40 decibels would you be distracted. And generally we are used and we embed in our human living system a noise level that is taken to be the noise of normal living, that is 45 decibels. We all have refrigerators at home. The refrigerator, typically a good refrigerator, that is, establishes a noise level of 50 decibels. Rainfall is another interesting relational benchmark. 55 decibels is the decibel level of the rainfall. Then when somebody using a lawnmower in the garden, you hear that sound that is from the 10 meters for an example, and that is 60 decibels. When you have typical speech, it is between 55 and 65 decibels, whereas a decibel level of 65 to 75 occurs when you have a bedroom with fan and a car opening or a dishwasher. Then these decibel levels keep on increasing. A ceiling fan produces 70 decibels, washing machine, hairdryer, AC 70 plus decibels, loud traffic from 25 meter distance or a vacuum cleaner 80, busy city traffic or an alarm clock 85, gas mower and mixer grinder 90, hard hand circular power saw 95, Walkman as well as tractor 100, a snowmobile 105, and siren from 10 meters 110 decibels. Now with this you are very clear that having a noisy fan is the one which is operating at 70 decibels and above, without doubt. So what is the pain point in having a noisy fan? A noisy fan which runs over 8 hours of a person's sleep phase every day is actually far more than an annoyance for the consumer. It not only affects the quality of sleep adversely, it also causes certain physical and mental abnormalities over the long term. That's why having the lowest possible level of noise in a fan is important. But who has thought about it? Not really anybody has thought about it. That's why this unique startup wants to develop a whispering fan. So the founders, the technologists in the startup start wondering why the noise of the fan is generated and where and how it is generated. So causes of fan noise are understood in terms of the following: air cutting, because when a fan circulates and the blade cuts through the ear, there is air cutting, and that cutting noise is also dependent on the blade design. We are all aware that when a car is designed in an aerodynamic fashion, it is able to move through the air in a smoother fashion. The coefficient of drag is less. So by designing the blade in such a manner that the swishing through the air happens in a very aerodynamic fashion, then it reduces the noise. Then the quality of the motor, because that is the moving part that is driving the entire fan, that represents a noise trigger. Then the regulating system, how finely the regulator regulates the fan movement. The mounting hardware, how rigid are the hardware items and how integrated these fixations are in the overall product design. And the materials used. If the blades are of metal, there would be one level of noise. If they are of plastic, there would be another noise. If the finish of the blades and the other moving parts are of the highest order, the noise would be less. So all of these factors would have an impact, and each factor individually and collectively determines the noise level of a fan, and that noise level is also contextual in terms of the type of room envelope that is relevant for the deployment of the fan. Now, when you want to develop a product, we need core competencies in the startup. So the individual must analyze himself or herself. Who am I? Am I an electromechanical engineer? Am I an aeronautical engineer? Am I a mechanical engineer? Or am I an industrial designer? Depending upon who am I am able to bring certain core competence to the project at hand as a startup. If I'm an electromechanical engineer, I'll be able to focus on motors and regulators far more than I would focus on the blade design. If I am an aeronautical engineer, I will focus on the blade design and the air shear. If I am a mechanical engineer, I will talk about materials and fits and tolerances that can be controlled with my core competence. And as an industrial designer, I would be designing and I will be expressing this product in terms of an elegant design language. I'm not suggesting that the founders should have all of these engineering and architectural capabilities. What I'm suggesting is that depending upon who you are and what you are, you will be able to bring a particular level of core competence to the startup project that you have on hand. So the startup needs to answer the core competence question through the set that best solves the problem holistically. Where should be my effort in terms of accessing the core competencies and assembling the core competencies? So when you do this ideation, when you come across the right triggers as the problems and therefore the right solutions for that, then you try to integrate all these pieces into developing an integrated solution. So you would say that I would need to have fundamentally very specialized extremely low noise motors, so to say silent motors. I must also have lighter but stronger materials. I should design the blades for the least air drag. I must optimize regulator and I must optimize each fan model design for the room. And I must standardize the hardware because the design has to be flexible depending upon the room for which the fan will be ordered. The startup needs to decide on the relevant outsourcing and organic development and manufacturing options covering all of these important factors. Now, simulation. Simulation is one of the most important aspects of developing a startup project, and the simulation must occur before even a prototype build takes place. So if you have a 44-inch or smaller fan, ideally you should have 75 square feet or less of the room size, and beyond that up to 350 square feet you need a 48 to 58 inch fan, and beyond that again over 350 square feet room you require a 60 inches or larger fan. Then you also have the blade dimensions, the kind of curvature, the kind of angularity that exists in a blade. And looking at the overall design, you may have a 2-blade fan, a 3-blade fan, a 4-blade fan, a 5-blade fan, or even a 9-blade fan. All of these things must be understood and applied to the relevant context so that you will be able to outsource the appropriate designs and appropriate parts if you are not able to make them organically within yourself. Now you have two filters for testing a minimum viable product and the ultimate desirable product, because if you have crossed all of these technical barriers and created a technical solution, you need to decide on how you would position this. Further, two important aspects are price elasticity of demand, and the second is the entry determined price. And what is MVP? Minimum viable product. That is a product which is not going to be the same as the final product, but has the essentialities already built in. If you are taking an electric vehicle, it will be a vehicle which has a battery, which has got the powertrain mechanism, battery management system, and a smooth riding mechanism. It may not have all the frills of a fully developed automobile, whereas ultimate desirable product is something which incorporates every feature that is expected to be there at the time of commercial launch. Now, the emphasis on price elasticity of demand and entry determined price would vary depending upon whether the product that is being put in the market for commercialization is closer to the MVP, that is a very basic functional product, or closer to the UDP, that is a value added premium product. These are the two filters that are available when you are developing the whispering fan. Now let's look at the concept of price elasticity. The concept of price elasticity, if you have gone through certain basic economics, is the elasticity of demand, that is whether the demand would go up higher or lower, to the price, that is whether the price is going to be lower or higher. So as can be seen from the correspondence, the price elasticity of demand says that if the price is lower, the demand will be higher, and vice versa. This is a graph of two axes. On the x-axis we have demand, and on the y-axis we have price. So the unit elasticity is the one which is being shown. If a product's demand is as per the vertical line, that is whatever be the price level, the demand exists as one unique number, then it's a perfectly inelastic product. Demand is completely unaffected by price. On the other hand, if the demand varies substantially, even with very minute changes in the price, or even if the price is static, something else influences the demand, then we say that it is a perfectly elastic demand. Demand will vary despite static price. You can play upon other features of the product or its service to be able to generate the appropriate demand. So price elasticity of demand is an important concept for launching a particular product in terms of its commercial positioning. The nature of price elasticity curve varies depending upon the nature of the product and structure of the industry. Typically, price elasticity works in a range for each product industry situation. There is also an important concept which is related to this, which is entry deterrent price. This was first propounded by Professor Michael Porter. Entry deterrent price is a hypothetical concept, which is a very real qualitative concept with quantitative backing. This concept focuses on the prevailing structure of prices and related factors such as product quality and service, which just balances the potential rewards from entry forecast by the potential entrant with the expected costs of overcoming structural entry barriers and rising retaliation. What it means in simple terms is that when you introduce a new product with new features and better service, all of those things have a cost impact, and because of the cost impact, they have a price premium. Now the customer is willing to appreciate that improvement in the features and service, but the customer is willing to pay only a particular premium for that. And if the product is beyond that price premium that is acceptable for the customer, the product may not make any headway. And if it is lower, then the product will be well accepted. But how do you determine the cost and price? Very simple example. You may have a material cost of $1,000. You have a conversion cost of $400. The cost of goods is $1,400. Then you try to market the product. Therefore, there is a marketing and dealership cost of $100. But you want to get the product known to the market, so you incur advertisement and sales promotion cost, which is $100. The sales people themselves are a kind of variable cost factor. You want to sell more, you have to put more sales people. To the extent that you have to put the sales people in advance of the actual sale, it is a fixed cost. So that also needs to be added. So the total cost for you as a startup to put a product of whatever technology and whatever innovation into the market is $1,700, starting from the basic material cost of $1,000. You would therefore like to have at least $1,700 to keep your head above the water. But that's not the way you can function the business for the long term. You need a margin. So you decide that you will have a margin of $300, which is a trifle less than the 20% margin. So target price is $2,000. Now let's say you have thought about that target price and the current products are only $1,500 and the market believes that $1,800 probably is a tolerable price premium. If your product is priced at $2,000, then the entry in this case is unlikely to be successful. It could be just muted because the entry price is higher than the entry deterrent price. On the other hand, you decided for whatever reason to position it at $1,600, then the entry is likely to be successful because the entry price is less than the entry deterrent price of $1,800. So Just as understanding the overall elasticity of demand of the product is necessary in a generic and macro sense, the entry deterrent price computation is also important from a micro and specific product market context. So these two concepts must be understood by the startup before launching the product. Now, having covered this with reference to the whispering fan example, I would like to take some examples of how startups rose to the occasion when COVID-19 hit and how they moved to develop portable ventilators. As we know, the ventilators that are used in the ICUs, intensive care units, are not portable. They are all fixed and they are typically synchronized to each bed. They are standalone ventilators. So COVID-19 brought forth a tremendous shortage of ICU capacity in hospitals globally. So many companies, more importantly, the startups, started ideating and prototyping on the need for a portable ventilator. It was also noticed that, among others, the protocol for ventilator support dictates ICU capacity. That is, even if you have 1,000 ICU beds, if only 50 ventilators are there, it will be the rate limiting theorem for the ICU capacity. And also, given the highest level of transmissibility of COVID-19 virus, you can't easily swap ventilators across the beds. Conventional ventilators, as I said, are standalone, bulky, and are of fixed deployment nature. While ICU capacity is thus limited, wards and rooms lack ventilator support completely. So somebody who has got a severe infection, even before COVID, any other infection such as pneumonia, the patient is confined to the ICU until he gets completely cured and he cannot go to the room or the ward. So there is a skew in terms of the pressure on ICUs, which are also costly for a patient to bear. From the above pain points, we have identified that we need to have a new generation portable ventilator to dramatically alter the healthcare delivery, not only for the COVID-19, as was apparent at that point of time in 2020 and 2021, but as a general proposition for better managing the ICU capacity in hospitals. So when you ideate with your design thinking, you conclude that a portable ventilator must have the following attributes. It should be smaller and lighter. It should be movable and flexible. It should be connected and analytical. This will be one extra plus because you are bringing in new digital technology as part of the ventilator development. You can develop not only a portable ventilator, you can also develop a digitally connected ventilator. And if you are able to add artificial intelligence into that, probably you will make it analytical ventilator as well with some kind of machine learning. It should be cheaper as well. It should be self-reliant and scalable, and at the same time meet all the standard ventilator performance specs, because when you talk about ventilation for an ill patient, nothing other than the highest level of performance is required. So how do you do this? You go technical, you go scientific at this point of time. So there are several factors which are important for a ventilator. What should be the peak pressure? Standard bedside ICU ventilator is compared in this table with the proposed portable ventilator. So peak pressure must be the same. Even though it is a smaller, cuter, portable machine, in terms of delivering the peak pressure for the patient, it has to be the same. So 60 centimeter of H2O. Tidal volume again must be on par, 50 to 2000 ml. The max power is 60 watts typically in a bedside ICU ventilator, but you could have a lower power consumption because you are doing a portable ventilator, smaller and more compact. Oxygen delivery could vary anywhere between 21 to 100% in a standard bedside ICU ventilator. Again, there cannot be any relaxation on this aspect. Dashboard displays are inbuilt and visible on the ventilator itself, but in the proposed portable ventilator, you can connect it to a tablet or a phone and even digitally collect through a clinical management system in the hospital. Connectivity, typically the normal ventilator is standalone, whereas you can have a portable ventilator which is device and cloud connected. Data storage is minimal. Whatever you want to see, you will see. You may get some kind of readouts, but they are minimal. Whereas with your digital connectivity, the small portable, the new age portable could be unlimited in terms of data storage on cloud. In terms of the volume, these products are clunky. 1 cubic meter space at least is utilized, whereas your portable ventilator could be as low in envelope as 0.03 cubic meter. You would have standard ventilation modes in the bedside ICU, but you can have an auto wean as well. That is, keep seeing how the SpO2 is improving and keep weaning the person away from ventilation, because one of the unnecessary side effects of ventilation is that the patient gets dependent on ventilation and doesn't know when to breathe and how to breathe. He might even forget the practice of breathing. Therefore, periodic weaning of the patient from the ventilation is necessary, and this can be digitally provided. The price for a large ventilator is 6 lakhs. Probably you should be able to develop it at 20% of the cost to create the necessary impact. And when somebody takes up this kind of project, you should imagine and you should appreciate that the startup has a purpose which is beyond business. It is this socio-economic purpose which I discussed in the previous class. So socio-economic purpose, if it is embedded in the startup founder, I would think that there would be much greater passion in developing these kinds of products. So the startup aspiration of portable ventilators goes far beyond the immediate. It is not just meeting some more ventilator requirements in the hospital. It in the overall enhances ICU capacity structurally. It is a permanent positive change in the clinical setting. And most importantly, it enables a step-down ICU and also enables in-room ventilation service. It reinforces the capability profile of smaller clinics and rural urban public health centers. It enables real-time and remote monitoring together with clinical integration. So you can see how a startup which is developing a compact, portable ventilator which is also cheaper and still on par with the conventional ventilator could completely change in a transformative way the healthcare system in the hospitals. Suddenly you will find that the capacity of a hospital to treat infectious diseases goes up manifold, and that is the kind of contribution which an innovative startup can make to the system. Now, having developed such a portable ventilator, the startup founder could debate further what else can be done. We can develop, of course, multiple versions and extensions. We can think of a non-invasive option, that is, without making any hole or inserting the tube. Is there any different way in which it can be operated? How can we deploy this in the home healthcare setting? How can we combine it with oxygenation through oxygen generators? And how can we also combine this with monitoring of other patient parameters, not only SpO2, but various other parameters. For example, we have patches which measure sugar levels. We may soon have patches which may measure the electrolyte levels, or whenever there is a kind of urine output and other things, quick measurement and integration of those parameters can be done. So the ideation and prototyping could lead us to more products, more variants, more diversified products that could be done not immediately, but at a later stage. So this is a concept of how a startup can uniquely and intelligently develop an innovative portable ventilator. Now let's look at another startup opportunity, antiviral masks. When COVID-19 hit, many people didn't immediately appreciate the need for masks. But it has been proven in several studies utilizing thousands of patients and thousands of normal people that masks have been the most effective and the most simple method of reducing virus transmission. So the mandate is to make masks more effective by not allowing the COVID virus to survive. Many masks stop the COVID virus from entering, but still something could come in through the mask because of the way those are worn or because of the design of the mask. But if you have a coating that will destroy the virus once it enters or comes into contact, that's your premium positioning. So textiles need to be pre-coated prior to conversion into masks or wipes. And coating of masks and other textiles can be done with newer technologies such as antiviral nanoparticles. Therefore, the startup gets born that we should make either antiviral masks or have antiviral coating on masks and textiles. So what does it do? For that, you've got to establish certain pioneering standards. First, you should identify the antiviral and antibacterial properties that we must have. We should also make sure that there is no leaching of the antiviral coating when washed with water and detergents. It should be able to meet the washing requirements for a certain number of cycles. And those wash cycles can be predetermined. It must be capable of coating multiple types of fabrics. Your nanotechnology must be capable of coating multiple types of fabrics, not merely the mask materials, but also the handkerchiefs, the bed sheets, and the towels as an example. And most importantly, it must be non-toxic to humans. So these are the pioneering standards. Why do I call them pioneering standards? Because these standards are not readily available in respect of preparation of textiles for any apparel use. So in this, you will decide that manufacturing is the key, because the other component, such as that be it a cloth or a mask, is already available. But you need to find out a very unique, cost-efficient and quality-effective method of manufacturing the antiviral mask or the textile. So you need a customized coating machine. You need the appropriate nanoparticle technology. You have to develop nanoparticle coatings. The machinery must be scalable, and you should have testing and homologation capability. So when you assemble all of these things, you will note that manufacturing of antiviral coating on masks and textiles requires a manufacturing competence, which of course is based on material science. It is a B2B business strategy, because you may not have the ability to reach out to the entire market to be able to market your antiviral coating. The antiviral coating is best supplied to companies which are already in the business of making apparel or the masks and various other cloth accessories. So you need to have coalitions and alliances with prominent textile and mask manufacturers. B2C possibilities could exist, but they are limited due to the lack of marketing infrastructure. You must have an appropriate business model. Because you are allying yourself with established players, probably you should start monetizing your technology, your science, so that you can take up volume development of the nanotechnology or get into more different ways of protecting a person against virus. You can use multiple models: co-funding, transfer price, profit share, licensing, and royalties. And finally, you should look at scalability, the nature and timing of expansion. How do you get into omni-channel marketing once the product is approved? What are the other possibilities once you achieve this? You can start coating any surface. You can deactivate any object. You can coat medical accessories. And you can apply this antiviral and antibacterial coating to special interest products. So what started as the antiviral coating of a textile or a mask for COVID-19 purpose specifically can be diversified and extended to cater to many possibilities which are really required for a safe, hygienic living. So this is how a startup would approach antiviral coating. So having these kinds of technological capabilities, having these kinds of design thinking approaches, having these kinds of abilities and core competencies to develop prototypes, build minimum viable products, prove the products and the business, and then get on to ultimate desirable product is one aspect of the entire startup paradigm. But there is also another important aspect, which is developing a proper business strategy and structuring a proper business model. Let's look at these aspects. So what is business strategy? Business strategy of a firm is a set of integrated actions that are planned for a firm, covering multiple domains of the company so that it can accomplish its objectives and goals. What it means is that a firm, to develop a product from an idea and manufacturing it and to supply it to the customer, it needs to carry out several functional activities. But it also is a very strategic approach to get to the desired goals. So, setting the goals as well as having a strategy is part of this business strategy formulation process. This business strategy is developed essentially to take advantage of environmental opportunities and insulate the firm from environmental risks. And while doing so, it takes into account the firm's strengths and also the weaknesses. This process of developing a business strategy is called business planning, long-range planning, or strategic planning. In doing so, it reaffirms the vision and mission of the firm and sets goals. In the last lecture, I informed you that a startup cannot and should not work only for today. It must have a vision of which the purpose beyond business is very important. It should have a strategy, which is a guiding template connecting the vision to execution, and you must also have the execution capability. Business strategy is encompassing the key strategies of the firm, which are functionally driven but having the business goal at the end. This could be product strategy, technology strategy, operation strategy, financial strategy, marketing strategy, and human resources strategy, just as a typical enlisting of these strategies. And a business strategy typically covers a reasonably long-term horizon of at least 5 years. And the first year of the business plan also serves as the annual budget of the company. Then if business strategy is this, what is business model? Business model is an approach to operationalize a business strategy. You have decided to make this kind of portable ventilator. You have decided to make this kind of antiviral mask. But how do you commercialize that? Would you offer it on credit? Would you have, as I said, have a B2B arrangement essentially, or have a B2C arrangement? Would you provide partial monetization or regular monetization? You would go by a royalty methodology. So there are alternative business models that can be applied to a singular business strategy. Business strategy could be one, but business models could be many. And each firm may take up a business model that is suitable for its financial and fiscal position. When you are developing a business strategy, you must address the questions such as, what is the business of the firm? Am I in the ventilator business, or am I in the healthcare business? Am I in the business of serving the clinics, hospitals, or homes? You may say that you are there in all of these things. Who are the firm's customers and what are the markets? So understanding the customer needs and fulfilling them with empathy. To be able to do that, what are the products that the firm must offer? Therefore, you need to have a product strategy which has the founding pillars of technological and scientific competencies. Where should I manufacture these products? How should I manufacture the products? What should be the costs and prices of the products? And finally, how will I achieve viability? While we exist with a clear socio-economic purpose as differentiated startups, we should also look at responsible consumption, responsible wealth generation, and equitable distribution as the cornerstones of good governance. So our benefit will be when you combine your business growth with sustainability. So business strategy of a firm addresses these questions. And how do I define the business? If you take the common example which you can easily relate to, if you talk about commercial vehicles, at the core, you may define it as a commercial vehicle business. But then you say that what do these commercial vehicles do? They transport goods and passengers. So you may say that my business is not manufacturing commercial vehicles. My business is road transportation. So the moment you think of road transportation, you may say that my core is not merely commercial vehicles, but it could be any type of vehicle. So the way you define the business has an impact in terms of what you actually end up doing. Then you may say that no, road transportation alone is not important. I would like to be in the transportation area, which means that you may suddenly open yourself up to sea transport, air transport, or transport by drones, flying taxis, and whatnot. So the field becomes extremely wide. You may say that these are also not the ways in which I must define the business, but everybody needs mobility, and I am the provider of mobility. And this mobility can be provided through vehicles, through the transportation infrastructure, through the transportation systems, or any other manner. So when you define yourself as a mobility provider, then the entire world is your stage, so to speak. The problem is, if you define your business in too broad a manner, you will lose focus. The bandwidth that you have in terms of people and capabilities will be tested, and you may even collapse. On the other hand, if you are too narrow in your business definitions, you may not be able to see what else is happening in the world, and you may be left out in the innovation. So a startup particularly has got its task cut out in defining the business strategy through the lens of the business of the firm, and it has to be intelligent and equitable to its own capabilities and also the potential of the technology and science and the passion it has. So the business product nexus is further defined. So when you say that I'm in road transportation business, you got a huge number of vehicles that can be part of this definition. And you should also remember that each of these has got a different set of customer needs to fulfill, even if technologically some commonality exists. So a small commercial vehicle may be more suitable for the last mile delivery of e-commerce companies or very dense city traffic. On the other hand, a light commercial vehicle could be much more useful in meeting suburban as well as core transportation, whereas a medium commercial vehicle will take the products across the breadth and width of the nation. Similarly, whether you want to be a passenger vehicle manufacturer, goods vehicle, a chassis manufacturer, or fully built, each of these questions need to be answered with reference to the customer needs you would like to fulfill to define the business you need to have. So you define the target customers, the target marketplace, and the segmentation through these kinds of filters. And the more perceptive you are in terms of defining your customer need and product definition, the more successful you will be in defining the business. On one hand, the product strategy drives the marketing strategy. On the other hand, it also drives the operation strategy. So to get at the core products and services which you would offer to the marketplace is in a way a starting point for developing the overall business configuration of your company. So when you are a startup and you want to define your business, you have to do it very carefully and pragmatically, because a startup doesn't offer itself within the framework of an existing industry. You need to define the problem and the commensurate creative solution very carefully, because you are creating your own industrial framework. So let's say you define yourself as a smart wearable startup company, just as a starting point. Then immediately the questions will come. Am I going to make a smartwatch, a smart glass? Am I going to make a smart apparel, a smart diagnostic, smart pen, or any other smart product or service? But each of these has a different set of customer needs to fulfill. So smart wearable is a definition that is too broad. On the other hand, if you say that I want to make a smart pen, your business definition may be too narrow. So the target customers, the target marketplace, and the segmentation, again in this case, vary depending upon the customer need and product definition. One important thing and useful thing in understanding the business strategy implications for startups is that a startup doesn't need an elaborate business plan as a mainstream corporation requires. If you get the right product at the right time in the right manner, the startup can create not only a new business but also a whole new industry itself. You don't have to have a lot of analytics to estimate the demand, try to find out a market share, and undertake the various normal business process of mainstream companies. If you have a novel product which has got its market capability, then suddenly you will create a business for yourself and even an industry around your business. So startup has got that unique advantage as well as challenge. Now let's try to elaborate these things with the example of smart glass or smart spectacle. What is a smart glass? Smart glass is a specialized tech-based spectacle with specific objectives other than visual support. Google has been a pioneer in thinking about smart glass. The normal spectacles market itself is segmented depending on the usage and esteem factors. So when you look at the total eyewear market that is traditionally available today, you have got spectacles which are in the mode of vision correction, long sight or short sight. You may also do the same vision correction without the spectacles but through the contact lenses. You may use spectacles as sunglasses that protect your vision, particularly when you don't want to have ultraviolet radiation affecting you, or when you don't want mist troubling your vision. Then you can use it as a fashion accessory. So these are the four broad segmentations in traditional eyewear. But when you divert yourself to smart eyewear, you have different kinds of objectives and segmentations. One is an improving objective. That is, effectiveness of the eyewear and its usage can be improved. You can enhance the functionality and you can enhance the experience of using a spectacle. And you can create through your inventive ability new segments and new applications. Because a smart glass is a novel, technologically differentiated product, it can become a disruptive product. Now, how do you understand the eyewear market? Before you get into smart glass, first you must understand the traditional eyewear market. You need to understand the scale, segments, applications, regions, players, and the drivers. And what are the drivers? Drivers are usually the factors that impact the demand stimulation, demographics of the population, the vision problems experienced by several age groups, the weather conditions, esteem uses, and so on. So we need to conceptualize the smart glass in terms of the enablers of scale on one hand and the drivers of demand on the other. When you are able to develop a matrix which combines both of these factors or both of these dimensions across these 4x4 segmentation, you will be able to understand where exactly the demand could be novel, where exactly the demand could be innovative. So how do you quantify this demand? We need to look at a long-term horizon when you are thinking of these kinds of disruptive products. So what is the global demand and what is the segment demand? What is the product demand? What is the sub-product demand? So you start with the traditional eyewear market and you arrive at a total demand which can be classified into vision correction, sunglasses, fashion accessory. You understand what is required for spectacles, what is required in terms of contact lens production, plain production, luxury production. But just as these are developed with a particular customer need in mind, you need to develop the smart glass also like a specifically customer-oriented product. It should not be a technological dream. It should have connectivity with the actual customer needs. And to be able to do that, you should understand the technology that is going to drive a smart glass. If it is a normal glass, there are only two aspects, the end product and the sub-product. And what is the end product? The normal glass. And what is the sub-product? The frame and the lens which is held in the frame. These together have got lots of small bits of components like the fasteners, the hinges and the nose bridges and so on. But it is a very simple hardware definition that is applicable for a normal glass. But when you think of a smart glass, there are three levels. One is the end product, which is a smart glass, no doubt, but you have two subsystems as an intermediate layer. One is an optical system, second is an operating system. And what is an optical system? It comprises displays, cameras, lenses, something which just doesn't exist in the traditional eyewear. And what does the operating system comprise? The frame, the sensor, the wireless module, the processor, and the battery. So the complexity And the challenge of design and manufacturing smart glasses is many times over what exists in a normal glass. And these are available to provide certain new functionalities in a smart glass which a traditional eyewear cannot provide. And this also represents the power of convergence of innovative technologies in terms of a new smart device. So a spectacle may seem to be a simple product, but multiple products can emerge based on technology. Even in the normal glasses, there has been continuous differentiation. You can have prescription glasses, which are short distance oriented, long distance oriented, bifocals or progressive. The bifocals themselves can be plain or UV protected, and the looks can be clear, tinted, dark. But when you look at smart glasses, you are looking at whole industries as your objective. The smart glasses can be developed for industrial use, engineering, manufacturing, logistics, infrastructure, to just talk about a few. Then they can also be designed for individual use. They could be for vision, they could be for content. They could be used in services such as education and entertainment. Today, smart spectacles constitute less than 5% of global eyewear market, but could reach anywhere near 50% share in the years to come. So smart glasses are going to be intelligent glasses. They are going to let you do many things. Even as you are looking at somebody, you may get advice in terms of the right grammar, right communication. You may be able to see and read something, but at the same time you may get interpretation of what is being said. There could be communication through the smart glass, there could be recording through the smart glass, there could be playback, and there could be a lot of artificial intelligence functionalities that are embedded in a smart glass. So if you want to develop these kinds of products, we have to rely on one traditional framework, but which needs to be adapted to the new digital wave. Fundamentally, it is product dimension and the market dimension that determine the growth of any company. So you can use existing products for the existing markets, but achieve higher growth through better market penetration. You can keep the existing products and go into new markets and then achieve better business. You can use existing markets as your base, introduce new products and enhance your business. But as typically a startup would do, you may use new products and enter new markets and create a whole new business. A startup may start with the new product, new market concept, but eventually it would also get into a situation where it also operates in all the three grids. A granular product market grid helps the firms to understand how a firm can drive its phased growth. You also require a strategy to reach the consumer. Depending upon what kind of eyewear you are having, in the current spectacle industry, you have an online sales paradigm or an offline sales paradigm. And depending upon whether the eyewear is of prescription variety or the casual variety, your approaching methodologies towards the customer vary. And the more sophisticated healthcare product the smart eyewear becomes, the greater could be the regulatory hurdles as a medical device. We can't assume that you can do certain things in the future just as you have been doing it with normal eyeglasses, because they will become clinical products, they will become industrial products. It is possible to imagine that an inspector who is inspecting a pharmaceutical plant would wear a prescription smart glass and then look at and be constantly on discussion with his subject matter experts in Washington or New York or Atlanta, wherever they are situated, and understand the rights and wrongs of what is being done. So it may provide better depth and better intensity to the inspection activities that are happening. Similarly, when you are not able to physically travel, you can let the existing people who are operating the machinery use these smart glasses and operate the entire inspection process through them. You don't have to travel as an inspector to get in there and do it. You can use the smart glass for logistics. You can use the smart glass for education and content development and content monitoring. So when you have this level of diversity, we need to understand how we should construct the business plan in an appropriate manner. We should understand the growth drivers, quantify them, and make them the principal drivers of the business plan, like the businesses, markets, products, and market shares, the revenues, prices, and the profits. You should look at the costs, investment costs, operational costs, and viability must be determined by the profitability and the return on investment. A good financial plan is the capstone of a good business plan, but the financial plan can only be as good as the underlying assumptions, actions, and metrics. And a good business plan can be an effective plan if there is a good product and manufacturing strategy, which again will be effective only with a good science and technology plan. So the interrelationship of startup development, business development is very profound and needs to be understood in its holistic manner. So when you develop this business strategy, you should give equal attention to all the functions which are involved in developing business strategy, from product development to operations, that includes manufacturing as well as supply chain, sales and marketing strategy, which has its own long value chain, the financial strategy, the human resource strategy, and the ESG strategy. So a business strategy is not just an assembly of these strategies, it is actually an alchemy of the various functional strategies that you can think of. Now, when a startup is going to excel in all of these things, the startup can be fortified in its thinking that there are multiple funding options that are available. If the ideas are good, if they are well constructed, if they are well tested and well positioned, at any point of growth of the company, be it early growth or late, customized funding solutions are available. And to be able to do that, you have to identify the appropriate funding option, engage with the investors or bankers who offer that funding option, and pitch your idea for that. So from own family funding to bootstrapping, high net worth individual angel funding, private public sector incubator support, not-for-profit investment, especially for social entrepreneurship, microfinance corporation investments, non-banking financial corporation, NBFC investments, traditional banking and financial institution investments, corporate investments, established entrepreneur VCPE investment vehicles, alternative investment funds, private equity investments, government startup support investments, and crowdfunding. We got, you name it, we have it, kind of boutique of financing options. But to be able to do that, you must really look at promising appropriately, executing with focus, and delivering on the promises. And finance helps operation and promotion. Investment helps innovation and scale up. Making these two merge through a good business strategy is one of the challenges which the startups have. So with this, we come to the end of this special lecture. I'll meet you in the next special lecture. Thank you.